Друзья, всем добрый вечер. Мы скоро начнем занятия с досточтимой Робиной. Большое спасибо всем, кто может включить камеру. Учителю всегда очень приятно видеть отклик, видеть людей. Все записи наших занятий вы можете найти на YouTube-канале ФПМТ. И мы периодически прикладываем их в наши рассылки. Ссылки на них. Пожалуйста, если у вас в течение занятия будут вопросы, вы можете писать их в чат. Иногда досточтимая Робина хочет вступить в дискуссию с человеком, кто задает вопросы, поэтому, пожалуйста, будьте готовы проявиться, включить свою камеру или включить свой микрофон. А чтобы вас легче было найти в списке участников, пожалуйста, нажмите, вот здесь есть синенькая ручка. Если вы зайдете в список участников, внизу вы увидите кнопочки разные, есть синяя рука, написано «Поднять руку». Вот, чтобы вас легко было найти, пожалуйста. Когда досточтимый позовет, предложит пообщаться, проявитесь. Диана, привет. Добрый вечер, Катя. Сегодня нам, как обычно, помогают Диана с синхронным переводом и Катя с переводом вопросов из чата. Досточтимая Робина.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, Venerable.
Hello, sweetheart.
Good
Hello,
to see
everybody. Thank you so much. Yes. All right.
Shall we start with the bodhicitta text?
We can do that. No, we do. What did we do? What did we do before? What prayers did we do before?
We did let me check. Refuge, bodhicitta, and mandala offering.
We did mandala. So you do the mandala offering. This is our final class, right?
Yes.
Good. So it's good to really offer a mandala. So tell the people. Diana, is Diana there?
Yes.
Diana,
yes,
how are you?
She's there. Yes, she's waving to you.
So, sweetheart, tell the people we're going to offer a mandala as a request for the teachings, but it's also, and at the end, we'll also do one as a thank you for the teachings. That's often auspicious to do that, to finish off the 4 classes we had together. So then, who can sing the prayer? You, Anastasia, or do you want me to sing it?
Владимир, может быть, ты поможешь нам сегодня?
You do it. I want you to do it in Russian. Good to do it in Russian. So
yes, in Russian.
First, think like this, everybody. Think this way. We're going to offer this, what they call a mandala. Basically, it's the universe. It's the universe of us humans. So we're just imagining all the marvelous things that people use that make them happy. We're piling them all up, imagine, and we're offering to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. That's very auspicious. As if the Buddha were here himself, asking him for the teachings. So we do that. Just then I'll sing the refuge prayer. I'll do that. You sing the mandala, okay? You can do it in Russian, Anastasia.
Oh, okay. В Будде, Дхарме и Высшем Собрании ищу прибежище вплоть до просветления, силу заслуг от практики даяния других парамид, достану я Будды на благо всех существ. В Будде, Дхарме и Высшем Собрании ищу прибежище вплоть до просветления, силу заслуг от практики даяния других парамид, достану я Будды на благо всех существ. будет дхарме и высшем собрании, еще прибежище вплоть до просветления, силу и заслуг от практики даяния других пирамид, достану я Буддой на благо всех существ. And mandala offering, краткое подношение мандалы.
That's what you should be doing, the mandala. I will do the other one. That's my job. Your job is the mandala. Never mind. Doesn't matter. You do that now. And we've done that first one. But your job is to offer, as the center, you are offering the mandala. And then I, as usually the teacher, leads the refuge prayer. That's okay. We learn these things. So now you do the mandala, or requesting for the teaching.
Эту умащенную благовониями, покрытую цветами землю, великую гору Меру, 4 континента, солнце и луну, я представляю как поле Будд и подношу. Да насладятся все существа, скитальцы, жизнью в этой чистой земле. Идам гуру ратна мандалакам нирьятаями.
So we imagine the Buddha happily receives our offering. So now that you've done the other prayer, but I'll sing it a couple of times in Tibetan. The first one. And the first 2 lines are for those of us who already think we are Buddhists. And so it's reminding ourselves of our refuge, a reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And the second 2 lines are stating our purpose, making it very altruistic. We think we're going to listen to these teachings, to take some tools from it so we can develop our marvelous potential, so we can be of benefit to others. Sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog. And you said it once in Russian, so that's 3. Okay, let's start. Thank you, Anastasia. All right, everybody. So here we've been looking at tools. I mean, that is the way to think about Buddhism, is it's taking tools from it, you know, which we then use. Obviously, a tool is something you must use. And what is the tool for? Well, this is why I'm quoting all the time this nice analogy that a bird needs 2 wings. It really does. It covers all the approach to Buddhist practice. So the point of it, the wisdom and compassion. Point is compassion. The point of all the hard work. When you're a Buddha, you know, your job then, you've gone beyond ego. There's no longer any suffering as far as you're concerned. You've finished the job. You only have empathy and compassion and wisdom for others. That's your whole purpose in life. So the first part is we've got to train ourselves to get out of our own rubbish, our own ego, our own fears, our own nonsense, which causes us suffering, but which is what prevents us from benefiting others. If you think of it that way, you know, we at the moment stuck in our own oppression, our own anxiety, our own anger, our own fears. That's what causes us misery. And that's what causes us to harm others and therefore prevent us from helping others. So the bottom line is the end result is to be of benefit to others. And it all sounds very noble and it sounds very exhausting, because I mean, the world is a very suffering place. But that's the idea. And that's the point that Buddha's making. That's our natural potential. So think of it that way. The end result, Buddha, that's who we actually are. That's our actual nature. That's what's valid, you know. So the first, you know, the etymology of this word, I've mentioned this before, the word Buddha, it tells us exactly what the result is, and it implies all the methodology. It's so clear. So this first syllable, Bud, or the Tibetan equivalent, the word Sangye is the word Buddha. So Sang or Bud, that implies the total eradication from our own mind, our own very being, of all the rubbish, all the ego, all the fears, all the depression, all the anxiety. I mean, this is a very shocking concept psychologically. This does not fit with the modern world's view of neuroscience and psychology. It sounds like insanity to think that you won't have any fears or anger or depression ever again. That just sounds crazy. We can't even imagine it. But this is exactly what Buddha is saying. Not only can we do that, but we can, this is the Mahayana path. The second syllable, da, implies the development to perfection of everything else inside us, which is love, compassion, intelligence, joy, self-confidence, self-respect, all the so-called positive qualities. I mean, just this concept alone is kind of really powerful to think about, because this is the point of being a Buddhist. This is the result of all the hard work. So hearing that that's the end result, it implies the methods you use to do that result. And that's obviously the mind, because anger and depression, anxiety, and love and intelligence and kindness, they don't exist in your eyebrows or your fingers. They don't exist in your body. They exist in your mind. And that's where we have to then again understand this crucial Buddhist approach, which is hard to hear initially, that Buddha's not discussing your brain. He's not saying you haven't got a brain. It's evident. But the way to put it, I think, without insulting neuroscientists, is that what goes on in your brain is a physical indicator of what is happening in your mind. And Buddha's expertise is the mind. Buddha's expertise, Buddha's incredible sophisticated skills enable us to unpack and unravel this mind of ours to a degree of incredible subtlety that we do not have in modern psychology. That's the job of being a Buddhist. So, okay, then that's the main job of the wisdom wing. On the basis of you doing the work on your mind, lessening the rubbish and growing the goodness, then you're able to benefit others. And as you increasingly develop your mind and increasingly rid the mind of the rubbish, you are increasingly capable, even more powerful benefit for others. So a bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. And the wisdom wing is all about ourself. It's got nothing to do with helping others yet. That's more advanced. We've got to stop making a mess of our lives first, you know, and we've got to stop harming others first. So this is why the very first level of practice, if you've studied any of this packaging of Buddha's teachings known in the Tibetan as Lam Rim, you'll know, and that's the analogy I always use as well, like junior school, high school, university, postgraduate. That's a really perfect way of expressing the stages of practice if you're following this path, you know. So given that the Buddha's view is then, like this is summarizing what we've been talking about the last month, you know. Given Buddha's view of the mind, that we're at the moment driven by all the neuroses, we're driven by, the first one is this completely ridiculous, concrete, solid misconception about our own self. That's the starting point of all the problems. This, colloquially, we can call it ego grasping, this really wrong sense of a separate, concrete, fear-based feeling of me. And this is really subtle to try and get to understand. On the basis of that sense of a separate, concrete, miserable me, we then have this bottomless pit of attachment, this emotional hunger to get what that fantasy me wants. And that's the motor that drives all sentient beings, attachment. Such a simple word, like I've talked, you know. And when we begin to understand this, we can really say we're beginning to practice Buddhism. You can do mantras, you can visualize the Buddha, you can do prostrations, you can wear these robes, you know, become a nun or a monk. That's not actually being a Buddhist. They're tools to help you do the actual job, as Lama Yeshe would put it, of being your own therapist. It sounds very cute, but it's profoundly true, you know. And Buddha's skill is his detailed explanation of the way the mind works in a very sophisticated, very subtle way. And initially, to us, it sounds very simple. Ego grasping, attachment, anger, they sound so cute, you know. But the three main delusions, ego grasping, which gives rise to this huge bottomless pit of neediness, of emotional hunger to get what the fantasy me wants. And then panic attack of anger, aversion, depression, whatever you want, what levels of it that we experience when it doesn't get what it wants. These are the three poisons, the three toxic emotions that run the lives of all sentient beings. Then all the other delusions, and Buddha articulates 84,000, but even if we think of 6 or so, jealousy, you know, arrogance, all those, they all come as a result of these three. So this is the point. This is not the beginning part of practice. This is more advanced. The first level, given that we're driven by these delusions and we've got body and speech, we've got behavior, haven't we? We don't make this distinction in our culture too much. But what we do with our body and what we say with our speech, what drives that? So if we say angry words, abusive words, we do unkind actions, if we steal things that don't belong to us, if we kill somebody, if we cheat on a partner, we're misusing our body and our speech, and what we're doing with it is harming others by definition. So the first level of practice for the Buddha, don't worry about being your own therapist yet. That's high school. We've got to start in junior school. And that means control your body and control your speech. I like to say we can try and control the servants of our mind. So this is not a way we think in our culture. We just think of, you know, me and go to the therapist and talk about me. Well, Buddha's got these stages of practice. And this first level is where you think about practicing good ethics. It sounds very nice. Your grandmother would teach you good ethics. A good communist would teach you good ethics. A good Christian would teach you good ethics. And this is Buddha's approach. And this is where we learn about karma, this natural law. This is the first level of practice. Buddha's not even getting us to look at our mind yet. He just says, control the servants of your mind. So stop harming sentient beings. But the crucial question is, why should I do that? That's the same advice that Jesus would give us. That's the same advice, like I said, that a good communist or your mother would give you. So you should ask the question, why shouldn't, this is a really major one. We could talk about this for 2 hours, for the rest of the month, the rest of the year. We should ask the question. We just take it for granted. Oh, it's not good to kill. It's not good to cheat on partners. You should ask the question, why not? You should be logical. So why? So this is the crucial point. And I have mentioned this, and I'm going to say it again, because when we understand this difference, we're really clear about how Buddha talks and his whole path. So, you know, if Jesus says to us, don't kill, and he does, don't steal, don't kill, we should ask the question, why? It's reasonable. And so his reason is because God said, and that's logical if you posit a creator. God is the boss. God made the universe. God makes the rules. God makes me. So naturally he is to be obeyed. This is reasonable. But the point is, this is our general view of ethics. It's somebody telling us not to do something. So then this is why we get all guilty and neurotic. Mummy tells us not what to do. The police tell us not to do this. The government says don't do this. God says don't do this. So the natural feeling we have is, and this is the Christian teaching, and because as I always quote my Jesuit priest friend, when I asked him, what is a sin by definition? And he said, by definition, a sin, or as Buddha would call it, a negative action, is necessarily going against God's will. That's what makes it bad. The killing part, he said, that's natural law, that plays some role. But the main reason it's wrong is because God said. This is a really huge point to get clear about. So now Buddha would say also, like Jesus, don't kill. So you should ask Buddha, why not? And his reason is not the same. It's only natural law for the Buddha. There's only natural law. There's no equivalent in this type of thing of Buddha's law, because Buddha's not a boss. He is not a creator. He did not make the universe. He is not running the show. He did not create me, and he did not create these laws. They are natural laws. So he's more like a scientist, and I really mean this quite sincerely, you know. So then the reason not to kill for the Buddha, you should ask him, why not? Well, there's 2 ways of seeing it. The first one is killing by definition, we can see this, is an action that harms another. So the Buddha is telling us everything we think and do and say, everything we think and do and say is a karma, an action, necessarily every millisecond. And necessarily each of those actions will sow a seed in my mind, leave an impression in my mind, program my mind necessarily. And then those seeds, unless I pull them out, will ripen in the future as my experiences. So as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, this law of karma, you might as well call it self-creation. And it's a really nice way to put it. But it's shockingly different. Shockingly different. So in other words, we are the boss. We cause our own happiness and we cause our own suffering. This is such a profound view, and this really takes us time, because we have in our mind the dualistic view of punishment and reward. That's how we think of ethics. And it's not like that for the Buddha. As far as the Buddha is concerned, there is no punisher. There is no rewarder. So it takes a while to think about this view. And when we do, the change in ourselves psychologically is huge, because we start to grow up. We start to take responsibility. We start to realize that our mind, which is not the brain, which does not come from mummy or daddy, which does not come from a creator, and it certainly can't come from nothing. It comes from a continuity of itself from past lives. This is Buddha's fundamental view of the universe. Without positing this view, the whole of Buddhism collapses into a heap of nonsense. You know, it doesn't stand up as a valid philosophy. So this is a huge one to posit, to take as our working hypothesis. Our mind is not physical. It is not the handiwork of mummy or daddy. It is not the handiwork of a creator. It does not come from nothing. It is the result, it's the continuity of mental moments that found its way to our own mother's womb at the time of conception. And when it dies, it will continue to experience what it itself has created. So this is a starting point for the Buddha. It's a pretty huge point. And this is where all the teachings on of Buddhist ethics. So a negative action is any action, broadly speaking, for the Buddha, there are either negative actions or there are positive actions. There are neutral as well, but we'll forget those. So a negative action, by definition for the Buddha, is anything we do with our body and speech or our mind that's driven by a delusion, that's driven by anger or attachment or any of the other nonsense. That's the broadest definition of a negative action. Now, the heaviest level of those negative actions are obviously ones that harm others. Not every negative action harms another. All negative actions, though, harm oneself. So the Buddha's reason behind exhorting us not to kill, not to jump on the wrong partner, not to steal, not to lie, etc., etc. In other words, not to do actions with your body and speech that harm others. These are the heaviest negative actions. So he exhorts us not to do those. Now, why? Because guess what, Robina, he says, whatever you think and do and say will sow seeds in your mind that'll produce your future experiences. So if you want future suffering, if you want to be killed, if you want to die young, if you want to be born in the lower realms, of course, it's pretty abstract for us, but even if you just think of being human, do you want bad things to happen to you? Do you want to get sick? Do you want to have bad husbands? Do you want to get lied to, stolen from? Do you want to have bad things happen? Do you want to be sick? Do you want to be killed? Of course it looks like I have to take this urgent thing. Please forgive me, that was something urgent. So the junior school level is learn to control our body and speech, which sounds kind of simple, but it's a huge practice. I mean, look at your relationships and you can't control your mouth. You can't shut up, you know. We've got no control over our body and speech. This is already a profound level of practice. This is already a profound tool for your happiness, I promise. This is an incredible level of practice, abiding by the laws of karma, but not because Buddha said. Not because Buddha said, but because it's like you go to a doctor, she gives you a good diet of good nutrition. You don't do it because your doctor said. You do it, you eat that way because you know it'll make you healthy. That's the attitude to living good ethics, because it's the method to make you a happier person. This is not how we tend to think, but this is fundamentally necessary to understand. It's for your benefit. That you, Buddha, so it's for you, first of all, it's your benefit not to kill, not to steal, not to lie. And even it's your benefit to do good things. We've got to realize we are the beneficiary of that level of practice. Often in our world, we think, oh, that sounds selfish. It should be for compassion. Eventually it will be. But you've got to do it for your own reason first. Now, and that's what the meaning of renunciation is. We hear this word, you got to get renunciation. It sounds so forbidding. What are we renouncing? What are we giving up? We're giving up suffering and its causes. And that's doing negative things, because they will leave seeds in my mind that will ripen as my future suffering. So really comprehending this principle and taking it as our working hypothesis, because obviously we're not clairvoyant yet. We can't prove it's true. It'll cause my future suffering. But, you know, you trust your doctor. So Buddha's our doctor here. But eventually we will see it. This is the basis of the first level of practice, no question. And if the world could do this, look at the world. I mean, look at the world. Look at what we do with our body and speech. Look at the harm sentient beings do to each other. That's the function of the body and the speech. So can you imagine if humans controlled their body and their speech, that nobody would be harmed? It's unbelievable to think about it. So don't just dismiss this level of practice. It is huge. So the point here, though, in terms of our more advanced levels, controlling our body and speech, then we become more conscious. So we are now more easily able to go to the next level of practice, to high school, and I call it, which is this, the stages of practice, where we now become our own therapists. We now learn to understand the mind in great detail and start to really seriously meditate and unpack and unravel our own mind, our own thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. This is what being a Buddhist means. And it's not that easy, but this is the job. This is the job. And then we start to become in control of our speech, of our body, and then of our mind. That's the real job, like we were talking last week. This is the job of being a Buddhist. And it sounds so easy, but it's not, because we don't have this method in modern psychology. We're not used to looking into our mind. We're used to looking at the external world and the events and the people and the things that happen to us, because we're convinced they're the cause of what I'm feeling. But the Buddha's expertise is learning to become familiar with the thoughts that inform our feelings. So we've got to go deeper into our mind. And don't think that's mystical. It is not. It is not. It's how we talked a lot last week, And but we start by controlling our body and controlling our speech. For whose benefit? Your own. That's the first level of motivation. Of course, as Lama Zopa said, if you stop killing, all the rats and cockroaches will have a party because you leave them in peace. They are also the beneficiaries, but the main purpose behind this level of practice is for your own benefit. You've got to realize this. By the time we get to the compassion wing and we become more advanced and we've given up ego, of course, everything is only for the benefit of others then. But we've got to start with ourselves. There's something we really don't get in modern culture, I tell you, but it's unbelievably important. So that's the first tool for happiness. Control your body, control your speech. And I mean, that's where in your relationships, at work, you'd be transformed. I mean, it's incredibly powerful, but it's extremely difficult because because we're not familiar with our minds, we don't know what's going on in there. So before, we don't even know that we are angry until the words are vomiting out our mouth. We don't even know we are depressed until we can't get out of bed one morning, because we don't pay attention to the thoughts. But starting by paying attention to your behavior, and that's where if you take refuge, you take the 5 layperson's vows. And let me describe that now. When you say you commit to becoming a Buddhist, your first step would be you'd formalize your commitment to being a Buddhist, you'd take refuge. And often at the same time, when you do that with somebody, then you would also take the 5 layperson's vows. So the way Lama Zopa talks, Buddha's teaching, is that vows are so powerful, unbelievably powerful. So the Buddha would say, that even taking the vows, there's different levels of vows. You've got the level of vows related to the wisdom wing, which is the first and junior school and high school, like I like to call it. In the Lam Rim, the first and second scopes. Those are all to do with controlling your body and your speech. They're called the vows of individual liberation. In Sanskrit, pratimoksha. And so the very first level in Buddhism, you hear Buddha telling us the 10 non-virtues: don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. That's just general advice. It's not a vow. But when you commit yourself to being a Buddhist, you commit and you take refuge formally with somebody. And I can also discuss the criteria of refuge as well, because that's when you anybody listened to the teachings, thought about it, read the teachings, tried a bit of meditation, and you decide you want to identify as a Buddhist, then you would formalize your commitment to it being a Buddhist by taking refuge with somebody. So I can talk about that too. And often at the same time, you would take the 5 layperson's vows. You might take those later, but often at the same time. So that's when so vows are super powerful for the Buddha. He loves his vows. You've got the very first level of vows, pratimoksha, as I said, the vows that enable you to achieve your liberation, which is this junior school and high school, the first stages of the Lam Rim, the wisdom wing. So there are 5 of them. And vows generally are only about behavior. Vows aren't about the mind. They're about what we do, how we behave, about our body and our speech. So this first level is called the pratimoksha, which is the junior school and high school. The next level is the bodhisattva vows, which is the compassion wing, much more powerful. The purpose of the first set of vows is to protect you from creating more negativity for your sake. The next level, bodhisattva vows, completely different. They're also about behavior, but these are now more advanced. They're to help us do what is most beneficial for others. And then the next level of vows, the most advanced, are from the highest level of the path, and that's the Vajrayana, the Tantrayana, the tantric vows. So these first ones are the foundation. So as the teachings say, Buddha says vows are so powerful that they're like a subtle physical energy visible to clairvoyance. There's something so marvelous about them. They're powerful in your mind, you know. So what a vow is an agreement to refrain from something. An agreement, a decision you make not to do something. Now, it's very interesting. When we think of a vow, we think of religion, okay? And often because we think of religion in this kind of negative, ridiculous way of punishment and reward, I'll get punished if I do something naughty, we feel like vows are somebody squashing these instructions on top of us, and we get very neurotic. It's not like that. If you think about everything we learn to do, like drive a car, if you had to list all the things you agree not to do when you drive a car, you would have a list of hundreds of things. I mean, we don't think of it as a vow, but think about it. It's a method for doing something properly. So you vow for sure never to put the foot on the accelerator at the same time as the brake. You would not turn the wheel left if you're going to turn right. You don't go, you don't sort of go the wrong way down a one-way street. There are hundreds of things you naturally have to learn that you decide you will not do, but we don't call them vows. But we know we have to learn them. And if you don't pass your driving test, you won't be able to drive. But we just think, I better learn these, and this will make me become a better driver. Well, these are Buddha's recommendations of things you learn to refrain from doing to achieve what? To turn you into a marvelous person. You want to become a good driver? You better obey the rules. Well, you want to become a decent human being? Obey these rules. But you decide. There's no punisher. There's no rewarder. You get the benefit. Or you get the opposite. You know, we are the boss. This is a big, big concept we really got to get used to. But we're used to the blame one. It's not my fault. I didn't ask to get born. It's mummy's fault. It's daddy's fault. It's God's fault. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's everybody else. We don't like taking responsibility. But the Buddha says, I brought myself into this life with my qualities and my tendencies and my experiences. I am the creator. It's a very powerful idea. We've got to really think about it, you know. So okay, so let's look at the vows then. This is the sort of when we formalize our commitment to becoming a Buddhist. So the first vow is we vow not to kill any sentient being, humans, and then of course the rats and the cockroaches as well, and the ants and the, all the rest, which of course is a shocking concept for us. Most of the world, even most religions, accept it's okay to kill some beings, So it's quite shocking to hear the Buddha would suggest it's not cool to kill anybody. But look at the logical reason. And this is why we have to unpack these things. Think about what motivates us. What motivates us to want to kill? Think about it. It's not virtue. You don't kill the mosquito because you love the mosquito. You don't kill the mosquito because you have compassion for the mosquito. You don't have an abortion. When I had an abortion when I was 23, that's killing. It's killing a sentient being. I didn't have an abortion out of compassion for the baby. I didn't have hate for the baby, but I just didn't want a baby. So it was like an attachment. So our motivation for harming sentient beings is pretty evident if we look at this view, and don't think we're some kind of like Hitler. We're not. But, what motivates us to do any action that harms another? Of course, it's self-centered. Of course, it's about me. It's so obvious, but we almost take it for granted, We don't really analyze it properly. But any action we do that harms another, it's motivated by attachment or by anger, pretty much. They're the two main ones, So we have to refrain from those. Why? Because I don't want the future suffering. If everything I think and do and say leaves seeds in my mind will bring a result, and if an action I do that harms another and is driven by anger, then that's going to pollute my mind. It's going to sow a negative seed in my mind. It's going to cause me to have a strong karmic connection with that person. And guess what? In the future, I'm going to meet that person again and they're going to kill me. Well, thanks a lot. I don't want this to keep happening. Look at the suffering in the world now. Look at the people who harm each other. Why do you think they do it? Because the person who's being harmed now did the harming in the past. We just keep going around in circles. We are like a joke, you know. It never ends until we decide to end it. So we vow not to kill any sentient being, which is pretty intense. So you can break your vows in a major way, which means you cut the vow at the root, or you break a vow in a minor way, which means you can purify it. So if you kill a human being, you know, and there are certain criteria that cause it to be a broken vow, and I'll describe. You have to know it's a vow and not care. You've got to do it without any conscience. You have no interest in fixing it, and you don't care any, you know, kind of the consequence it has for others. So it's very strong to break a vow. We often do it by accident, you know. So you break a human, if you kill a human with those criteria, then you've broken the vow at the root, and you need to take it again in front of somebody because you've broken it, all the vows. So then you break in a minor way if you kill any other creature. Again, with intent. But the crucial point has got to be with intention. If there's no intention, intention is the meaning of the word karma. I will, volition. That's the meaning of the word karma. Intention. If there's no intention, you can't say you fully break a vow. Not possible. So then you vow not to take. Lama Zopa translates stealing as take the ungiven. It's very direct. So we learn to control our body and not take what has not been given to us. So you break that in a major way if you take something of value from somebody. So probably if you steal, a small amount of money from a homeless person, that probably would be breaking in a major way because that's of value to them. And you break it in a minor way if you take anything at all that hasn't been given. So there's a really good discipline, you know, it's very powerful for our mind. And the thing is, it doesn't always mean you're going to take it with your hand. Like if you don't pay your taxes, and I've heard in Russia, people don't like paying taxes. I've heard, everybody's the same. People always like to cheat. When we don't think of it, it's called stealing. We've got to be so clear in our mind, so cautious, because the vow starts with the mind, It starts with the mind. Downloading movies, the things we do now so easily, just one press of a button. We've got to be really conscious. It's a very powerful practice. And the point is that, you see, we're so used to thinking of these rules as something that if nobody sees you do it, we think, oh, I got away with it. This is really infantile. This is why it's so powerful to understand that karma is about you, and that what you do will leave imprints in your mind. It's got nothing to do with punishment and nothing to do with anybody seeing you do it. It's a natural law. I mean, the view we have is like punishment and reward. So if no one sees me do it, we think I won't, I didn't do anything wrong. That's really childish. That's a bit like going to your doctor and she says, don't smoke. And then you go home because, and she tells you why, because you'll get cancer. But, you think, oh, the doctor told me not to smoke. Then you go home and you see that your doctor's not there. So you bring out your Marlboros and you smoke and you say, oh, well, she doesn't see me smoke. I won't get cancer. I mean, that's like people will laugh at us because it's a natural law. Who cares if your doctor sees you? Smoking will cause you cancer. Stealing will cause you to have future suffering. This is the whole point. Got to think about it. So then the third one is don't say words that aren't true. So you break lying in a major way if you lie about your spiritual attainments, And you break it in a minor way if you say anything that is not true, that, misleads people. In each case, there are certain criteria for breaking. The first one has to be intention. You know it's a vow and you don't care, and you have no wish to fix it, and you rejoice in it. So it's heavy to break a vow because usually it's not done with such strength. Often we just kind of get lazy, do it by accident. And the fourth one is, the last two are about the body again. And one is not to cheat on partners. They call it no sexual misconduct. And there's various ways of interpreting that. But the general one is to not cheat on your partner, or not to rape, for example. You don't harm sentient beings based on sexual attachment. So, typically a lot of suffering is caused when people are monogamous and you cheat on your partners, so much suffering. And the fifth one is no intoxicants. So these vows, if you take these 5, when you do the ceremony of taking refuge and you decide also to take the vows, you don't have to take all 5 of the vows. But my sense is, if you don't want to take the vow not to kill, then you're not ready to be a Buddhist yet, because that's a fundamental one. And it doesn't mean you're not going to harm sentient beings, but you don't, because we can't help it. Just by existing, we harm sentient beings. Even if we're vegetarian, billions of creatures die a terrible death so we can grow the wheat and grow the vegetables. But because we don't eat their bodies, we don't think it matters. So we can't avoid harming sentient beings. So that should make us very conscious, make us very conscious, and then at least try to do our best not to harm sentient beings. But by living in vows, we purify our own mind hugely. And as Lama Zopa says, vows are so powerful because, you see, this is the point, this is the logic of it. When we create karma means when you have an intention to do something. So here we are sitting in our houses now, whatever we're doing, listening to these teachings, and me sitting here. Most of us at this moment aren't killing. We're not killing. So we're being nice people. The rats and cockroaches are happy. We leave them in peace. But listen, there's no intention in our mind right now, is there? We're not thinking, I must not kill. I must not kill. We're not thinking that because there's no sentient being in front of us and we're trying to not kill. So therefore, we're not creating any karma. There's zero karma of not killing. And just when we die, because everything leaves seeds in the mind, right? And I use the analogy of we drop all these seeds in our bank vault. And at the time of our death, the karmic seed we need lots of to ensure that we get another human rebirth, at least, is strong, non-killing karma. And the powerful way to accumulate millions of strong, non-killing karmic seeds is in the framework of keeping vows of not killing. Because the only time you create any virtue of not killing is when you meet that mosquito and you make a conscious decision, I must not kill. Or you meet that ant or whatever it is, or your next boyfriend, and you decide, I must not kill. It's then when you have that intention, I will not kill, that you leave a karmic seed of not killing. But otherwise, there's no karma created. You're being a nice person, but being good is not enough, as Lama Zopa says. But when you have a vow in your mind every second, 24 hours a day, that you're not killing, and that you're keeping that vow, you're dropping karmic seeds into your bank vault, and you're putting atomic bombs under your tendencies from past lives to kill. So we can't create enough virtue in our lives to make progress on our practice unless we live in vows of morality. It's so crucial. And so to try to understand it logically is really important. Not just hear it as some superstitious religious idea, it's a powerful psychological tool. So the 5 vows: no killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, or intoxicants. So any questions about that? I need you to be clear. So any questions about vows? Anastasia, can you see any questions there? Whoever's going to tell me questions.
Hello, so I'm going to translate your questions. There is one question.
Good,
yeah, hello. So how the question is, how can I, sorry?
Is it about vows first?
It's only one question and it's about vows. So how can I take my vow again if I broke it? Yes, so the explanation is I took some alcohol with my mom to keep her company. So how can I
understand that. Well, first of all, that kind of one, you don't have to take that one again. You would purify. I think do you break that at the root? No, you do break it at the root. No, I think, excuse me, I've got to be clear here. Some vows you can purify by doing the 4 opponent powers. you must do the 4 opponent powers, you know, and which I want to talk about before we finish tonight. And I want to also do, talk about the purification of karma. It's really important, which I will do in a minute. But you must purify it from, and this is why, as Lama Zopa says, not to, you know, we're insane not to do the purification practice every day. And that's why we should end the day with our purification practice. It's so powerful. And we'll go through that after this. So, I'm really not sure now whether that you must, but I think anyway, no matter what, it's really excellent. Even if you don't, you know, like if it's not a major break, it's really auspicious to take the vows again, because then you can purify them. And the way you take them, of course, is you need to have a person who is qualified to give you refuge in the lay vows, and you should request that person. So whether at the center there, you have somebody who gives the vows, you have that there. Is there a Lama who teaches there? Is somebody who's qualified to give vows there in Moscow? Anastasia? There's a teacher there.
Yes, there is a geshe in the center.
Okay. So if you're part of the center there, you should request the geshe, you know, to take the vows again. Or anybody you trust that you know that you like as a teacher, you should email them and request them. And these days you can do it on Zoom, you know. I hope that's clear. Any other questions there, Katya?
Yeah. The next question is from Vladimir. He says that he is owning a shop, and by law, by some sanitary hygienic standards, he has to kill insects in his shop as an owner. So what can he do about it?
I know this is difficult, isn't it? The world does not, it's not comfortable in the normal world. I mean, the thing is, what you really mean is, I mean, what Vladimir means is that the sanitary rules don't want him to have creatures in his shop. So it doesn't follow that he has to kill them. Maybe, I mean, the thing is, okay, it's not easy in this world. Even if we don't intend to kill, we are still killing. But I think if you have a strong intention not to kill, if in your mind you really know you don't want to kill, then I think we can be very intelligent and we can find methods for how to, it's a possibility. I don't know, you must know what you've tried. We can try to find methods for getting rid of the insects without killing them. I mean, maybe that's possible, maybe it's not. I know it's very difficult in this world, but you've got to really start with the purest wish, I think, to not want to harm them. And if you can find methods, whether it's mice or whether it's rats, I don't know, whatever it is, if you can find methods to get them out of there, that's marvelous, you know, if you really can. I mean, I can't say to you, oh, it's okay to kill, because it's not my job to say that. Buddha's given his rules. We have to learn to understand them. And I've got a feeling, though, if we really have a strong intention to not harm, it makes extra work, but we can find methods as much as we can not to have to kill. That's the best advice I can give, you know. And then if we have taken vows and you do feel you've got no choice, otherwise your shop will be closed down. But I think we've got to be very rigorous in our thinking and really have an intention, you know, really have the intention. And I think if we're intelligent, we are intelligent, we can think of lots of methods. But you've got to have the wish to do that, not just go, oh, I can't help it, I have to kill them. That's just lazy kind of mind. You've got to really start off with the wish to not kill and see if you can find ways to get rid of the creatures without having to kill them. It's very powerful advice, because once you think that way, your mind opens up to lots of possibilities. But the other approach is, when we understand purification, which I'm going to talk about, when we understand, as Lama Zopa says, that everything we experience is our own karmic appearance. So if you're meeting creatures in your shop all the time, you've got karmic connection with these real living sentient beings. They live in your shop. They think it's their home too. You know, they think it's theirs. So you've got some strong karma with these creatures. So then if you do the purification practice and I'll go through it, and really regret whatever harm you did to these creatures in a past life by invading their home, think about it this way. If you purify that, don't be surprised they might even go. And this is not joking, because karma's like that. Whatever we experience, if you meet a rapist or you meet a thief, it's not by accident, it's due to your past karma. But if you purify that karma, you won't meet the rapist, you won't meet the thief, and you won't meet the rats and the cockroaches. So we've got to also think like that. It's very powerful. I'll discuss purification in a minute. Dinara, what's that flashing light? Dinara, what's that flashing light? What is it? Your computer or the outside? You can see a flashing light yourself? Very fascinating. Doesn't matter. There you go. That's stopped. That's better. It kind of makes me mesmerized. It's like hypnotizing me. Okay, any more questions, Katya?
Yeah. So the next question is connected, I think, to the previous one. It's about ants in the flat, you know, and what can I do if I have ants in my flat? How can I get rid of them?
Exactly the same answer.
Yeah, so it's basically
not easy, because I know there are so many in big cities. There are billions of these creatures running our houses, rats and ants and creatures and mosquitoes, and it's so normal in our culture to kill them all. So it's quite shocking to try and think of not killing them. It's got to start with your mind, and this is not easy, you know. See, there's two reasons. One is, I mean, compassion might be a good reason, but the first one is to have the sense that every action you do leaves seeds in your mind. So it's a bit like, if we think of it as punishment and reward, it's a bit like going to your doctor. Well, what if the only food available is sugar, and I have no choice but to eat sugar, then please, you know, how can I stop eating sugar when I'll get diabetes? So you've got to make a decision. Your doctor can't say to you, oh, you won't get diabetes, I give you permission to eat sugar. It doesn't work like that, because it's a natural law. It's the same with killing ants or cockroaches. It's a natural law. But we tend to have a feeling we want to get off the hook. We want someone to give us permission to do it because we can't help it. I know I'm not suggesting either of you are asking it for this reason, but that tends to be our attitude. I want permission. Oh, I can't help it. Can I kill them, please? Well, that's like saying, can I please eat sugar and not get diabetes? No, there's no way you won't get diabetes. But you can do things that mitigate it if you can, you know. So we've got to think about it very carefully and have the very sincere wish not to harm living beings. That's quite difficult. It's quite difficult. That's why if we live in vows every day, they protect us. And if we do our four opponent powers, the purification, that really can help change the situation, you know. And I'm going to discuss that. Any other questions there, Katya?
Yeah, the same. The next question is about also harming living beings. So it's about neutering animals. So, for example, castration of my cat, is it really harmful for this living being?
Well, you know, I mean, you're not killing anything. No, I mean, as long as it's anesthetic, what are you doing? I mean, there's nothing, you know, that's okay. I can't see you harming anything. I mean, certain people might say it's not, I don't know. No, I can't see why it's going to be harmful. Why is it, how can it be harmful? I mean, if you do it without anesthetic, you're being cruel. Of course you are, but just to take out their testicles or cut off their, whatever you do is when you castrate, I don't know what they do. I mean, men might get upset. Men feel very precious about their sexual organs. Maybe feel it's offensive to take away some cat's testicles power. I don't know, but I can't think there's any suffering there. What else?
Next question is from Dmitry. I can't really keep my vows because I don't sometimes notice many things, like I'm acting on autopilot. And if I didn't notice something but didn't really bring any harm, does it leave any imprint?
Of course it does. I mean, that's the point. It's like, that's again like saying, I don't notice what's in the food I eat and I keep eating the wrong foods. That's, well, you better start becoming conscious. I'm sorry. There's no shortcut. Everything we do, every piece of food we put into our mouth will have an effect on our body. So every thought we have and every action we do with our speech and every action we do with our mind, necessarily every millisecond is sowing seeds in our mind. Of course it will bring results. That's why we have to become conscious. Of course, most of us are on autopilot, but that's why we have to become conscious. That's the whole point about this law of karma. It causes us to become incredibly conscious, because everything we think and do and say, whether we intend to or not, everything we think and do and say, whether we're conscious of it or not, will leave seeds in the mind, because we are on autopilot. That's our tragedy. So we've got to start becoming conscious. That's what practice is. That's the whole point. That's what Buddhist practice is, becoming conscious. So absolutely, of course it does. This is why, given that we're on autopilot and we're not conscious, we've got to do the purification practice at the end of every day. It's like putting atomic bombs on all the negative imprints, and it purifies the karma you create in that day. As Lama Zopa says, we are insane not to do it every day. So I think I should talk about that now. There's no more questions there. Katja.
Yeah, so if we continue with questions, the next question is about alcohol. So what would be the major breaking of this vow in terms of alcohol?
It depends on who gives it. There's a tradition with His Holiness the Dalai Lama over the years when he gives it to big groups of people, like in Dharamsala or when he goes to the West, he tends to always quote a story about some old Kampa, some old Tibetan fellow who was taking the vows from his teacher, Ling Rinpoche, who was His Holiness's root guru. And the story is this old guy had taken the vows, and suddenly then Ling Rinpoche told him he's taken the vow not to drink alcohol. And the old guy was shocked. Oh no, he said, I can't go without my chung. You know, they have their barley beer. I can't go without my chung. So Ling Rinpoche was kind, and he said, that's okay, then at least don't get drunk. So His Holiness always uses that as his precedent. So it tends to be when he gives it to lots of people in the modern world, he gives it to not get drunk. But the traditional way from the Buddha is to not drink alcohol or take intoxicants, period. So I don't have the power to change that. His Holiness does. So the way I've taken it, the way I have been instructed to give it, I have permission from Lama Zopa to give the vows, to give refuge. It's given as to not take any. So it's a question of who you've taken it from. You need to be super clear what the vow was. But traditionally, it's not to have any intoxicants. And that means it's fine. You take the other 4. So you don't take the vow and then drink. You don't do that because you break the vow. You just don't take the vow. I hope that's clear. What else?
Next question is about altar. I have some. My altar is sorry. Sorry. It's about altar. So my altar. The question is, my altar is very untidy, and it even has some mold on it, and I don't really have time to clean it. So actually, it's like disrespectful for Buddhist symbols, but at the same time, it doesn't really harm anybody. So does it bring any negative karmic imprint?
Everything we decide to do, we have to decide to do it for a reason, isn't it? So if you are telling me that, oh, there's mold on my food in the fridge, but I've got no time to fix it, will it have any result? I don't think you would ever say that, because you would never want to put mold in your mouth, because we're all self-centered and we want to eat nice, fresh food. You would never do that. So it shows what our values are. So, I mean, with great respect, I mean, you're so honest in asking your question. You say there's mold on your altar, then you've got to decide the benefit of your altar. You say you don't have time. You've got to decide what is priority. So if you decide you're a Buddhist and you've decided you've taken refuge and you've decided you've got faith in the Buddha and you've decided you've got faith in the Guru and you've decided you want to make offerings every day to the Buddha, then that'll be the thing that you'll keep most beautiful. And the fact that it's got mold on it and you say you haven't got time to fix it shows it's not priority for you. So what do you think it's going to do to your mind? It's going to block you from receiving realizations. It'll block you from being close to the Buddha. It'll block you from hearing your teacher's teachings, because you're creating that by thinking it's not important. If you think something's not important, then obviously that will be the result that will come. It won't be important to you. So you've got to decide what's important. You've got to decide your priorities. It's got huge meaning. I mean, equally too, if you have water mold, I mean, you say it's mold. I've seen that. People's altars are like that because they don't think it's important to see it as a ritual. But if you think the Buddha really is here, and if you have a Lama and you really believe your Lama is the Buddha and your Lama's here, you would never, I mean, if your Lama came and visited you personally, you would not offer them a cup with mold in it. You'd never be so foolish as to do that. You would never do that in a million years. So it shows how disconnected we are. You don't think the Buddha's really there. And if you have offerings and you're offering them with moldy water bowls, my God, think of the meaning. And so think, if the meaning of the Buddha is there, the teacher is there, then you make it beautiful. No one has to, it's not a question of being seen. It's you're harming your own mind, basically. You're blocking yourself from the Dharma. Think about that. It's not superstition. It's logic. It's karma. Next question.
So could you please give definition of ego in Buddhism? So the question is, we all break our vows because of our ego. So what is ego but just karmic imprints and habits, and from the deep perspective is just emptiness. So what is the ego's definition?
Everything is empty. Shit is empty. Hitler is empty, Stalin is empty, Buddha is empty. So everything's empty. So that's gone. Apart from that, we'll leave that alone now. Everything's empty. Given that, what the question is, ego is a very loosely used word, isn't it? It's the Greek word for I, roughly speaking, but the way we tend to use it as we're referring to the neurotic sense of I, the rubbish sense of I, the grasping at this concrete I that gives rise to attachment and anger and all the other rubbish we do. So that's how we talk about ego, But the reason we break a vow isn't, it's too broad to say it's because of ego. Like the earlier person said, because you're not conscious, because we're on autopilot, because we're not aware and we don't consider it important. So it's a question of becoming conscious. That's the point, becoming conscious. So ego is just this word, and it's referring to ego grasping, which is the root delusion, which gives rise to attachment, which gives rise to anger, which gives rise to why we do things that are harmful. So that's why we have to understand Buddhist psychology and study it and understand properly the meaning of these words very precisely. I don't know if that helps. Anybody else?
The next question is about a vow for sexual misconduct. So the question is it okay to have sadomaso? Is that the right word? If both partners agree?
I understand that. I understand. There's different things here. There's different levels of it. Vows here are about harming others, okay? About harming others. So, for example, if you don't have a vow to not be involved in sexual misconduct, which broadly speaking would, let's say, be not to cheat on your partner. If you don't have a vow or you don't have a partner. No, okay, even if you do have a vow, but you don't have but you don't have a partner, that doesn't mean you can't have 20 it doesn't mean you can't have 20 boyfriends a day, as long as you're not cheating on their partner. So as long as you're clear that you're not harming another partner or harming your partner, then you're not breaking a vow. But the other part is you're increasing your attachment. So there's no vow to not do things with attachment, because everything's done with attachment. A vow is like a grosser level of actions that you attempt to refrain from doing. But the reason is so eventually you can even then work on your attachment. So if the broader job you're trying to do is give up attachment. So clearly, you like to be harmed, or you like to have sexual pleasure, which however you have it, whatever your labels are, the world gives it. Of course, you're increasing your attachment. Everything's increasing attachment. Every time we eat, every time we do anything, it's driven by attachment. If we understand the Buddhist view, attachment drives every single thing we think and do and say. It's way more primordial, way more subtle, way more pervasive than we can think. So if you have a vow not to harm another sexually, it doesn't follow by having 20 boys a day, or even by, harming a person who is agreeing to it. You're not breaking a vow, but you're increasing your attachment. So you've got to decide the bigger picture. The reason you have a vow, finally, is to lessen your attachment. So that's why we have to learn to curb our behavior. And I mean, it's not meant to be moralistic. Don't hear it as, someone says I'm not allowed to enjoy my sex. I'm not allowed to enjoy my food. That's how we hear it. The only way to understand the reason to have vows, and the only way to understand the Buddhist approach, is to understand that we're trying to lessen attachment and lessen anger and lessen harming, so that we can develop our mind and get incredible blissful mind. So you've got to understand the basis of it. So you mightn't break a vow, but you're certainly increasing your attachment. Everybody is. It's not just because if you harm somebody, I mean, whatever. Of course, we're increasing our attachment. All the time we're doing it. So that at least you don't break a vow. That's one thing. But it doesn't mean you're not harming your own mind. So you've got to understand attachment to understand that. I hope that's clear. What else, Katja?
So the next question, I think you already answered, but I just read it. What do you think, what is the Buddhist point of view about polyamoria? So the ability to love few people and have a sexual...
It's the same as what I said before.
Yeah, it's just...
Part of answer. You can have 20 girlfriends or 20 boyfriends if it's an agreement. I mean, commonly in Tibetan nomads, women would have more than one husband and boys would have more than one wife. It was just the way they were, But the thing is, so if it's an agreement, if you're not harming anybody, but you've got to see what's driving it. If it's attachment, you've got to decide. There's two different things here. There's a vow, which is an agreement not to harm somebody. And then there's just, in general, everything we do harms ourselves if it's driven by attachment. So we have to look at what's the basis. Into our own minds. That's the bigger picture, the broader picture. Are we increasing our attachment? Of course, everything we do is attachment, not just sex. Eating, walking, talking, sleeping, everything is driven by attachment. The way Buddha describes it, I mean, Lama Yeshe said, I could tell you about attachment for one whole year. We'll never begin to understand it until we start working deeply on our own minds. It's so pervasive. And even the very cause of being born as a human being with 5 senses is attachment over countless lives. So it's much more subtle and pervasive, the Buddha's understanding of it, than we would ever think in our culture. So that just comes from studying Buddhism and understanding it. What else, Katya?
So the next question, there was this kind of question already last time. So it's, dear Robina, is there any possibility to take refuge and vows from you online? Or maybe it's better to ask my local Lama and wait till the lockdown in my country is over.
You've got to know you want it from a certain person. So if you want it from a certain person, you find the way to ask them. And so then if that person, I mean, that's up to you. It's not a question of better with your local Lama. It's up to you to decide. You have to decide who you want to take it from. It's really helpful because anybody you take vows or refuge from, they become one of your teachers. So you have to choose that carefully. Don't be just sort of cavalier about it. You decide. You decide who you want to do it from. And if you decide there's a certain person you want, then, and they're not where you live, then you find their email address and you email them and you request them, and they can discuss it with you. So if you want that, you can get my email and ask me. You have to decide though. It's your call, your decision. It's very important.
I think there were questions like this last time, something like, is it possible in general to take refuge with you online?
Yes, of course. It is definitely possible, yes. Yes, absolutely.
So,
I mean,
okay.
there's initiations online, doesn't it? It's amazing. Go on.
The next question is, what is Buddhist point of view on LGBT people?
Okay. In general, the Buddhist view, if you look back in the old-fashioned days in India when all the these vows started to be written down, and vows came about in a very natural way based on certain conditions, you know, but there are certain ones, so there's certain ones, these are about behavior. So in general, the vows were talking about sexual misconduct. They were talking they were talking, those vows were instructions to heterosexual people living in a so-called traditional relationship of a man and a woman with their babies, you know. So then there's all sorts of rules about, like the broadest one is, like I said, don't cheat on your partner, but there are also more specific ones about, again, the reason is to control your attachment, usually a penis would go in a vagina and that's it, you know. And that would be the usual kind of the confines of a disciplined relationship of a man and a woman. In order to control your attachment, you'd have, the penis would go in the vagina. That would be it, pretty much. So that, of course, we think of the world now with all kinds of people, boys and boys and girls, and people changing their genders and changing whatever. It's a very, very different world. We still got to understand the basis of these things, the way Buddha's talking, which is the broader point I'm making before. We've got to try and understand what attachment. That's the bottom line. We're trying to lessen our attachment. Why? Because it causes us suffering. So then the Buddhist approach, I remember the Dalai Lama saying, maybe in the text they talk about penises and vaginas, but he said, how can I possibly complain about 2 men living together, loving each other, when they're 2 good human beings? So there's different ways of seeing it, So a person, if they're living, that's all I can say. That's the answer. That's the Buddhist way of saying it. And there's nobody punishing, there's nobody rewarding, there's no sort of, nothing like that. So it's a question of understanding the Buddhist approach, understanding the basis for any of these instructions that are couched as vows of behavior, of harnessing our behavior. The reason behind it always is to not increase attachment. So the way the world is now, it's, look at it, quite different. So there's no judgment there. Human beings are human beings and learn to practice morality with each other and not kill and not steal and not lie and not harm. How marvelous to live a life like that. But in the end, this is the thing, as a bigger picture, whether we're girl or boy, or whether we change our gender, or whether we call ourselves a lesbian or call ourselves gay, whatever it might be, all of these, don't be offended. All of this is due to attachment. All of everything we are. The way, if we fanatically identify ourselves as a carpenter, that's attachment. If we fanatically identify ourselves as being beautiful, that's attachment. If we fanatically identify ourselves as being a musician, that's attachment. If we fanatically identify ourselves as a girl, that's attachment. Everything's driven by attachment. And the way we overinflate the importance of that that label in our life, that's the suffering is because of attachment. So if you're born into this life with a tendency to like boys and you're in a boy body, the reason you suffer isn't because you're a homosexual. You suffer because people don't like you and the society criticizes you, and because we all want to be approved of, or we suffer because we have to keep it secret. There's so many reasons we suffer, but the fundamental one of liking a boy or a girl or this or whatever, that's not the issue. It's attachment. And the way we identify ourselves, if it becomes fanatic, that's why we suffer. It's not a question of, is it good to be heterosexual? Is it good to be homosexual? I mean, it's best to have no sex. It's best to give up sex and drugs and rock and roll and go to the mountains and get renunciation and realize emptiness and become a blissful, amazing being. Then we won't want any food or sex or drugs or rock and roll. That's the best. So getting caught up in our identities is the suffering, is the pain and the suffering. And that's why people suffer. That's why people suffer as gay people now, because the world doesn't like them. That's why we suffer if we're a lesbian, because the world doesn't like us. So this is why we suffer, because that's due to past karma as well. So in the end, fanatically identifying as anything is the cause of suffering. That's the bigger issue. That's the main issue. I hope that answers the question a little bit, gives some food for thought. I saw another question in there about abortion. Was there another one there in the chat box, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, there are quite a few. So the next one is from YouTube. Can I give my vow back if I can't keep it?
That's interesting. Yes, some people, if it's, some people really, I think it's a possibility you have to go to somebody and you can do that, yeah. But better to do that with humility and with sincerity than to break it. Definitely better. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and the next question is about abortions. So what is a Buddhist point of view on abortion?
Well, when we understand what a sentient being is, let's say a human being, I'll use my example. I always use my example because it's good to be personal about it. When I was 23 and I was living in London and I got pregnant, and at the time I'd been brought up a Catholic. I'd given that up and I was a bit of a hippie at the time, or I forget what I was, some hippie or something. And I remember this sex with this boy. I knew I was pregnant and I realized, I decided, I mean, I didn't think about it as killing anything. I didn't think about it like that. I just knew I didn't want what would come out after 9 months, a human being. It was very strong connection. And there's an interesting extra discussion with it. It's just due to karma. We have very strong karma. We all have strong karma with each other, people we meet in this life. So exactly the same. This person, a sentient being had died a few weeks before that. They were in the intermediate state. And then I hopped into bed with this boy. And then they had this strong karma with me and the boy, no doubt. And their mind came running and joined the egg and the sperm in my fallopian tube at that time. And then I realized at that second, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And I knew at that second, I did not want a baby. So I never doubted it. I never thought of it. I didn't have a thought to want to harm. I didn't have anger, but it means the karma of this person also who came to my womb, their very strong karma from their past killing of me, that they had the karma for me to kill them. So the karma was very strong and it was almost like automatic, And I remember I had the abortion. So so from the second of conception is when the mind from the person comes into the egg and sperm. So from that second, it's a real human being. Obviously, it's not a viable human being. They can't exist on their own, but it's still a mind going there. So technically, that's called killing a human being. Obviously, it's not the same as killing a human being who's fully developed. There's different levels of karma, So so then the ideal, that's the approach to it. But that's just the explanation of it. I had karma with this being. This person came to my womb. I knew I didn't want to have. It was very clear. And I was in London at the time. I remember it was in the 60s. And I remember the government had already legalized abortion. So I felt, oh, aren't I lucky? I got it free in the national health and the medical profession, in the medical profession in England. But I remember I was very depressed afterwards. I didn't know why. I never thought of it as killing a human being. Even I know they had to have a second operation because they didn't take the baby out properly. So the poor little fetus had been mangled. So it's really heavy karma from that point of view too. And it's for me heavy karma that the doctor had to do it and the nurses. So I'm causing negative karma for them. So it's kind of interesting, So that's, yeah. But I mean, purification, we can purify. There's no karma we can't purify. That's why it's so important to do the 4 opponent powers every day, which I keep telling you I'm going to talk about. It looks like we'll finish the day with it. And perhaps I'll lead you in the meditation as well. So that's it. So there's karma between me and that being. They came to my fallopian tube and to my egg and sperm at that time of conception. they, you know, then due to their karma, it was between me and them. It was clear to me I wanted an abortion. Never doubted it for a second, you know. That's because of the strength of their karma of having killed me in the past. It could have been 100 lifetimes ago. This is the way karma is. Karma is this inexorable kind of natural law. Every time someone is kind to you, it's because you've been kind to them. If someone steals from you, it's you've stolen from them. If someone believes your words, it's because you've told the truth to them in the past, maybe. Even if you're lying now, or a person doesn't believe your words, even if you're telling the truth, it's because of past lying. Because the point is, karma ripens in 4 ways in our life. If you can understand these 4, you can really interpret your life well. The first way your karma ripens is the human body that you've got now. We like won the lottery. It's incredible. And that's due to non-killing in the past, that we got a human body. Second, in this human body, we've all got a mind, haven't we? And everybody's mind is different. So we've all got these tendencies. So you know, if you've got, there's Hitler or Stalin or Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa obviously has got good tendencies, kind and loving and wise. They're her habits. Well, you know, the negative habits we have are the same. They're our habits that we bring with us from before. So that's the second way our karma ripens. It's called intentions similar to the cause. We come into this life programmed with our own habits. Not our mummies and daddies. Our mummy and daddy might share those habits, but we do not get the habits from them. That's the weirdest idea for the Buddha. That's not, we bring them with ourselves. The third way our karma ripens is what happens to us. This is called experiences similar to the cause, the things that happen to us. Because we're very social beings, aren't we? People harm us, people are kind to us, people are loving to us, people give us things, people take things from us. The rats eat our things in our house. You know, we've got these sentient beings out there whom we have a strong karmic connection with, and they either harm us or they help us. That's called experiences similar to the cause. And the fourth one is called environmental karma. It's the way the very physical world itself impacts upon us. So if you think of COVID-19 right now, you know, I'm sure we've talked about this. If you've got the third kind of karma, which is called experiences similar to the cause, if you've got the karma of past killing, like that fetus did in my body, she or he had the karma to be killed by me. That's their experience similar to the cause of their past killing. So I created the cause in the future to have that happen to me, of course, unless I purify it, you know. And so right now, look at the people who are dying. So getting killed or dying young is the experience similar to the cause of your past killing. But the environmental result of killing is that the very physical world itself harms you. So if you've got allergies, if you can't eat peanuts, if the water's polluted, if the air's polluted, if the food is bad and is not nourishing. But even now, look at it, we can't even touch other human beings. We will get COVID-19 and die. So even other human beings are the environment for us. So that's the environmental result of killing. And everything any sentient being experiences, whether it's happiness or suffering, it's the same law. Everything we experience, either as an experience, environmental, our own tendencies, or even our own body, we are the cause. Have any of these 4 results. So the 4 results of non-killing, 1 would be you'd get a human body. 2, you'd wake up in this life with no thought to kill, and that's unusual on this planet. 3, you would not get killed or you won't die young. And 4, the physical world will not harm you. It will nourish you. Whatever you eat, whatever you drink, the air you breathe, it will be healthy for you. That's the result of non-killing. And the main cause of the environmental result, your past non-killing. The main cause of you not getting killed or dying young, your non-killing. The main cause of you having a tendency not to kill, your past non-killing. The main cause of you getting a human, your past non-killing. We are our own creators. So you can flip that over and see the results of killing. So if the main result of killing is you get born as an animal or another suffering rebirth, in terms of this life, the result of killing, you'd be born with a tendency to kill. And look at the planet. Most humans kill something. Like, you know, I was taught as a Catholic that God made all those creatures without a soul for our benefit. That's not Buddha's view at all. Every sentient being, you know, Buddha would suggest we try not to kill. So if we have a tendency to kill, That's because we've killed in the past. And then we're creating the cause to get killed again in the future and go to the lower realms in the future, etc., etc. So the result of killing in terms of an experience is you get killed or you die young. The result of killing in terms of the environment is the physical world harms you, sickness, etc., etc. Every action, every virtuous action, every non-virtuous action has these 4 results. And we are the creators of them. There's no judgment, there's no punishment, there's no reward. It's a pretty powerful concept. We're the boss, you know, we're the boss. So we better start realizing we're the boss and take responsibility. Another question.
The next question is from Dmitry. It's about money. So money is the petrol of this world, and without money, sorry about that. So money is the petrol of this world, he says. Money. Yes, okay. And without money, you can't do anything big and important. Right. So, exactly. but to earn this money, you need to spend a lot of effort and time. That's and still you don't get enough, even for your good, if you have for the good causes. Exactly. So, and so you have basically you have this money question in your mind all the time, and not the practice. So how can you get around this problem?
I understand. Well, it depends on the person, doesn't it? I mean, some people, if they've got very good past karma of generosity and of non-stealing, in this life, as we can see with some people, they make no effort and they have money. They're born into a rich family, they get jobs easily, they're able to save money, and money is not a worry. But if money is a worry for us and we can never make ends meet, which is very typical, which is exactly how you're talking, that's the result of lack of generosity in the past, and also the result of stealing, because past stealing blocks us from receiving. And so the experience of never having enough, no matter how hard we work, which is the common experience of millions of humans, this is a result of not being generous and the result of stealing. So we have to purify it. Also, we have to change our behavior, change our habits. And money is such a big attitude towards us, you know. We have such a huge attitude about money, such a powerful view about money. And as you're talking, and it's real, but also we have to learn to change our attitude. And this is not easy. And that means we have to, you know, we purify our negative karma, we purify our stealing karma, we purify our generous karma, and that's really powerful. But also we try to be generous, and we especially try to be very ethical with our money and really be really conscious of it, and then try to learn to change our attitude towards it and not have to think about it in this anxious way all the time, which is due to our past karma, but it's also due to our present mind. So to learn to, and then the other attitude is to do it with a different, everything we do in the end, whether it's working 24 hours a day, earning money, it only becomes virtuous if our motivation is pure. So we also try to change our motivation. And given that most of us aren't that rich and we have to work all day just so we can practice, then we try to make even our work practice. And that means we try to change our motivation, which means even if we have to sweep the floor every day, we try to do it with a lot of humility, and we think I'm doing this so I can become a better human being, so whatever money I earn, I can keep myself alive so I can continue to practice. So then then everything becomes virtue. Everything becomes a pure motivation if your motivation, everything becomes spiritual if your motivation is pure. So there's many different approaches, you know, and that means the more, I'm just summarizing the different attitudes in Buddhism, and the more familiar we are with the Buddhist view, the more skillful we can be. Especially to make every moment of our life, you know, really pure, and having the wish to help people. Whatever job we do, we do it with a sincere wish. While we're at work, we try to be kind to others. We try to do it with humility. We try to do our best, you know, and then we treat the money with purity, and we try to purify our karma. All of this in general is the attitude and the approach to making your life more beneficial. Doesn't have to be stuck that only working for money is bad and only sitting on your bottom doing practice is good. Not like that. We do all of the things we do with a pure heart. Then everything we do, including earning money, can become a virtuous action. So there's many answers to your question. Many answers. What else, Katya?
So this is again a question from Irina and Oleg. So they say, I'm sorry, but could you please give a definition of ego in Buddhist psychology?
I thought I did. They asked the question before, they're not clear. Huh?
Yes, they did ask. That's their question. It was before, and they not clear.
Okay. As I said, okay, let me start again. The word ego, literally, we know that is from the Greek word. It is the Greek word for I. That's the word. But now, the way we use the word ego is very specific to how we use it in the West. Tibetans don't talk like we do. They don't say the, we say it as meaning the bad I. Oh, it's all ego. So we can see we are an I. We are a person. We are a person. I'm I. The word I, person, self, they are all simply referring to this phenomenon right here, this phenomenon. We are an example of a person. We're not a cup, we're not a lamp, we're not a toilet. We are a person. So the word ego literally just means that. Not in Buddhism, but in Greek, it means I. But the way we use it, the way Buddhists use it, oh, it's all because of ego. What the word in Buddhism would you'd say is all because of ego grasping. So the main delusion is that we cling to this concrete sense of I, and that delusion is called literally ignorance. It's mahripa in Tibetan. It's referring to the root delusion, and the function of that delusion is to grasp at this over-exaggerated, concrete, solid sense of an I. So when we say ego, we're meaning ego grasping, which is the colloquial term for this ignorance. Not the I itself, but we're referring to the grasping at the I. So that's the technical way I say. There's no definition in Buddhism. There is a definition in Buddhism of I. There's a conventional I. So this is an I. Conventionally, this is called an I. And the Greek word is ego. But when we say ego, we're meaning the bad I, the angry one, the depressed one, the jealous one, that one. It's a very loose way we use it. But technically, I am an I. You are a self. You are a person. So we've got the conventional understanding of I, which is a valid one. And then we have the ultimate I, which doesn't exist. That's emptiness. So by understanding the two truths, there's a conventional cup, and then ultimately the cup is empty of inherent existence. Conventionally, there's a lamp, but ultimately the lamp is empty of inherent existence. Conventionally, there is an I. There is an I, a person, a self, conventionally, but ultimately the I is empty of inherent existence. So by understanding the two truths, we'll know how to frame those words. But the way we use the word ego is a very loose way, I would suggest. Oh, it's all because of ego. It just means all because of grasping at your own self is the correct way to put it. I hope that answers the question. And if it doesn't, ask me again. Anybody else?
So the next question is, could you please explain what is a daily purification practices?
I'm going to be doing it before we finish the session. I'll lead you through it.
And next question is again about purification practice. So the question is, when I do the practice of purification with 4 opponent powers, I can't always use the power of regret. I can't always use the power of regret, as I don't remember what I did in my past lives.
I'm going to explain it. I will explain it, hopefully very clearly, and I will lead you through it before we finish, which means I should start soon.
That's it. That was the last question.
Let's now talk about purification. Very good. Okay. So every millisecond of what we think and do and say is a karma, is an intentional action. Mental action is the meaning of the word karma. Mental action, which means intention. So every millisecond of our day, and we are not conscious of 99% of it, we are programmed on autopilot with billions of intentions. And that person said before, it's to point, we are not conscious, but this is the whole point. We have to become conscious, because if it's sort of like if you've got seeds in your hands and you're walking around all day and you're continually dropping seeds into the ground, and you know by definition a seed will bring a fruit, so you'd better be conscious of what seeds you're planting. Otherwise you're going to have lots of ugly fruits in your garden in the future. That's the energy we need to bring to this concept of karma. We're so, like I said, we're so used to thinking of it as punishment and reward, and if nobody sees us doing something, we think, oh, I got away with it. That's absolutely infantile, and it's just illogical for the Buddha. Everything we think and do and say just necessarily sows seeds. So that's why we have to become conscious. So, and that's why we have to do purification every day. As Lama Zopa says, we are insane not to do it every day. So there's no karma we can't purify. Why? Because everything's empty of intrinsic nature. Nothing has an intrinsic nature. Nothing is set in stone. There's no karma we can't purify. So in this life, of course, we're, relatively speaking, we're fairly nice people. We don't go around raping and killing and murdering and terrorizing people. So we're not too bad. We've come into this life. The fact that we're even in this room together, we've got some karmic connection with Buddhism. How marvelous. We're trying to become better human beings. So it's so fantastic. But when we understand how we're driven by attachment and driven by delusions, then we want to purify. Of course we do. We want to purify for our own sake. Of course we do. So also remember, our mind has come from countless past lives. We've done countless things in the past to harm countless sentient beings. And those trillions of karmic seeds are sitting in our bank vault, waiting to ripen as our future suffering. So there are two functions of purification. One is to put atomic bombs onto the previous seeds, preventing them from ripening, which is so intelligent. But the other is just in general to, purify our minds and to create these new tendencies. So the purification practice is very practical. As a person mentioned, it's known as the 4 opponent powers, the 4 opposite things, and there's a good way in English to remember. Obviously in Russian it'll be different. It's the 4 R's. So there's a different order, but this order I find very nice. And the analogy all the lamas use is as if you've taken poison. So if you've taken poison, we all know that poison by definition is something that will cause me future suffering. So the first attitude of regret, and this is the person's question, it's really important. The first step has to be regretting that you've taken poison. Oh my God, what a fool. I can't believe I've eaten poison. What an idiot. I can't believe I've eaten poison. Because you know that poison, if you leave it in your body, will ripen as future suffering. You're energized to go to the next step, which is whom can I rely upon? Reliance. Where's the doctor? This is a logical, and this takes a lot of thinking about. We have many weird misconceptions about this in our culture. So the person's one about not remembering. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we remember. We don't remember 99% of today. Forget about this life. Forget about countless past lives. But that's not so, it doesn't matter. Because let's just say we use the analogy of you've eaten too much chocolate over the last week. And now suddenly you come out with sick, or you got, ugly on your skin, or you're feeling a bellyache. You don't need to know which piece of chocolate on which day. You just have to know the general rule. It was too much chocolate. So when you have a result in this life of somebody not believing your words, it's because you have lied in the past. It could have been 1,000 lives ago. So you can tell by your experience the action you did, because that's the experiences similar to the cause. If people lie to you, steal from you, harm you, try to kill you, you know the causes of that. Having killed, having lied, having stolen, you know the logic of it. So then in general, you don't want those kind of harmful things. So then you regret the actions that would cause those. So that's why you even just take the 10 non-virtues, or the first 7 even. You regret killing, you regret stealing, you regret lying. So now the crucial thing to understand, and this we often don't get, what regret means. Most of the time, we think of it as guilt. Somebody asked His Holiness one time, what's the difference between this healthy attitude of regret and this neurotic one of guilt? And it's a really massive difference. So he said, with guilt, this neurotic one, we look in the past and we think, I did this, I did that, I did this. And then we conclude, I'm a bad person. Now we run to that one automatically. Now don't blame your Jewish mother or your Catholic mother for that. That's the function of ego grasping, to have, and basically guilt is hate, is anger, but you are the object. So if I'm angry with you, you did this and you did that and you did this and you're a bad person. That's called anger, but that's exactly what guilt is, but we are the object, and it's heavy. It's so heavy. This is why we suffer so terribly. because we beat ourselves up. But it's just meaningless. It's useless. There's no action involved. There's nothing to do with it except have more self-pity and more misery and more self-hate. It's horrible. You just go dig it deeper, deeper, because we have this attitude of guilt and blame. And we think, I'm going to get punished. I'm a bad person. That's the dualistic view we have. And that's the function of ego grasping. So we have to change that consciously. So then His Holiness said, well, what's regret? Well, the first part is exactly the same. You look in the past, I did do this. I did kick the dog. I did kill my boyfriend. I did cheat on my sister. Whatever you like, whatever the action is that you know that you did based on delusions that harmed another, you regret, you say, I did do it. Then you say, what can I do about it? Because that's the attitude of poison. So doing negative actions is poisoning yourself. So when you know that negative actions will bring suffering results to you, and this is not compassion for the other people yet, this comes in the second step. This is like compassion for yourself, and we have to cultivate it. We have to think it properly. We think regret is guilt and I'm a bad person. Or the other attitude I've heard people say, well, let's say, like at the time when I had an abortion, I didn't think I was doing something wrong. I didn't intend to do something wrong. I didn't even think of it as killing, even though I kind of consciously, I didn't think of it that way. That was the only choice I could have made at the time based on the way my mind was. So then people say, but how can I regret it? Because that's what I was like then. That's not the point. It's just like, when I smoked cigarettes, I smoked lots of cigarettes, and then I never heard of cancer. I never thought of the consequence of the smoking cigarettes. So then just because I didn't know about cancer when I was smoking doesn't mean that now when I discover that I could get cancer, of course I should regret it, because I realized out of my own ignorance, I didn't realize that I was going to harm myself. And now look at the result. So that's what regret is. It's an intelligent attitude. I didn't know that the things I did as a human, even, I didn't mean to do it. And if I did mean, that was even worse. But in general, we do it out of ignorance. I didn't know I was going to harm myself by having an abortion. I never thought of karma. But now once I know about karma, I regret because of my ignorance, I did that action. And then in that action, I've sowed seeds in my mind. So now when I think of it, I regret that action. And this is the point. I've got to say the words why. Because you know what, Robina? You talk to yourself. I don't want the future result. That's exactly the same as poison. Oh my God, I ate poison. I can't believe it. I don't want to get sick. Quick, what'll I do? That's the next step. Reliance. Whom can I turn to as the doctor to give me the methods to purify this poison? That's the attitude. So it's not about punishment. It's not about reward, which is how, and that's the big difference. If I'm a Catholic, a Christian, I have to regret what I did, but the reason is different. The reason is because I went against God's will. So then I have to turn to God and beg God to forgive me. There's no such concept in Buddhism. Buddha would forgive you. He's a nice person, but it's not the point. For the Buddha, that's like going to your doctor and confessing that you smoked cigarettes and then begging her to forgive you and to stop you getting cancer. People would laugh at you if you said that. Your doctor's job isn't to punish you with cancer, and your doctor's job isn't to reward you by getting you off the hook. She gives you the medicine. She gives you the methods. That's the second step, reliance, where we take refuge in the Buddha. So the Buddha's our doctor, whose medicine we use to help purify our own mind and our own past karmic tendencies, So it's all of it's so kind of self-respectful, the attitude, but we've got to understand it properly. And the fact that we don't remember it doesn't matter. We've all done every possible action in every countless past lives, countless times. So we regret the lot. So the attitude of this, when you do it at the end of the day, you would take certain actions you've done that day. You had a fight with your sister, you killed your boyfriend, whatever. You sit there, you sit down and you acknowledge. Regret's like acknowledging, I did this, I did that, I did this. And you can think of some of the things today, and you say, and you're talking to yourself here. You're talking to yourself. You're being your own friend. I regret that because I am sick of suffering. I don't want the suffering results of this because I am sick of suffering. It's about yourself. We miss this step. It's so powerful because I am sick of suffering. I'm sick of this old habit. I'm sick of the result. I don't want the future results. I am fed up with this suffering. So of course I regret it because I don't want future suffering. And then you can think, if you have faith in karma, whatever I've done in beginningless past lifetimes to harm countless sentient beings, and mostly that as animals, Animals live with such fear and such delusions and such suffering that they live by harming each other all the time and being harmed. So the countless lives that we've done as animals out of ignorance, you know, killing, torturing each other. So you think, and whatever I've done this life, whatever I've done since beginning of time to harm sentient beings with my body and speech, I regret from the depths of my heart, because I don't want the suffering results to come. It's like you're putting an atomic bomb under those seeds you have planted. And it's the first step is regret for yourself. So then you think, whom can I turn to? Next step, reliance. And there's two parts. The first one is refuge. So the Buddha's our doctor, basically. He doesn't forgive us. It's not his job. He would. He's a nice guy. That's not the point. It's not forgiveness. It's not you don't get forgiveness from your doctor. She gives you methods. That's the Buddha's job. So then we rely upon the Buddha as our doctor. So you can visualize above your head. There's a particular practice all the Tibetan Lamas praise to visualize Buddha as Vajrasattva. It's a bodhisattva aspect of the Buddha. And he's particularly related to emptiness, which is the real purification. So we visualize Vajrasattva above our crown. And if we have a spiritual teacher, we have a Lama, we think that our Lama's mind is manifesting as Vajrasattva for our benefit. That's very powerful. It makes it very personal. So the second part of reliance is where we now have compassion for others. The first is like compassion for yourself. I can't stress it enough. It's not guilt. It's not I'm a bad person. It's not regretting because I've harmed others because of compassion. It's because everything you've done will result in your experiences in the future. And you do not want suffering, baby. So of course we regret the things we've done in the past that would ripen as my suffering. I do not want it. I am sick of suffering. It's a very powerful concept if we can get it. It's grown up, responsibility, accountability. Next one is now compassion, the second one after refuge, the second step. You now think of those you have harmed. So of course we can't remember them all in countless lives, for goodness sake. I mean, I'm always thinking of one whale, one mouthful. She opens her mouth. For one mouthful of one breakfast, 40 million little sentient beings go in. So that's a lot of sentient beings you might kill as a whale. And then they leave us for dead. Humans are pretty clever at killing, but animals are much cleverer. So we've done countless of these, we've got countless negative seeds. So then we now have compassion for all the sentient beings we've eaten and harmed and killed and tortured and lied and stolen from, etc. All the sentient beings, the lot, just think the lot, all the sentient beings. Of course, I now regret for their sake. You know, I know what it's like to suffer, so they know I know what they feel. So have such compassion for sentient beings. But now, if you can, compassion for those who've harmed you. That's the most powerful. And why should you have compassion for someone who's harmed you? Because they also are driven by the law of karma, and due to their harming you, they will suffer unbearably in the future. That's the real compassion to have, if you can. If you can't, you leave it then. Third step, the remedy. And this is there are millions of remedies, like the whole medicine cabinet of remedies. They often call this one the antidote. So in your daily life, if you're regretting stealing, the obviously antidote is to give something. If you're regretting killing, a really good antidote in your daily life is to save lives. Go buy a few worms that would be used otherwise for fish bait. Go save some fish. Help sentient beings who are sick. That's an antidote to killing. But the most potent one in terms of meditation using the Buddha is this third step where you visualize Vajrasattva, you visualize nectar coming, you say the mantra, this Sanskrit syllable, which is said to be, Sanskrit is said to be really powerful sound. Most pure sounds that literally purify your mind, the very saying of them, and purify the physical energies that your mind is connected to, and as a super powerful one related to the Buddha. So of course we've got to think about this because it sounds a bit superstitious to us initially, but this is the most potent antidote, the most powerful remedy. And the fact is, what, you know, as Lama Zopa says, the more, as Lama Yeshe says first, the power, what purification is the power of our regret, the power of our reliance, the power of the remedy, and the power of the fourth one, which I'll describe. The more we put our mind into it, that is what makes it powerful, because the mind is what creates negativity, as Lama Yeshe says. So we purify it by creating positivity with our mind. This is what purification is you changing your mind. We tend to think, oh, I'm a bad person. I'm a big lump of bad in here. No matter how much purification I do, it's still a bad person. That's just seeing yourself as self-existent. That's rubbish. Karma is dependent arising. There's no negative karma you can't purify. And it's the strength of your mind that purifies it by doing the opposite. That's what purification is. So you visualize. We'll just do it very briefly after this. We'll just do it very quickly, go through the steps. We visualize the nectar coming, we visualize, we say the mantra, and we want to purify. The power of purifying is we wanting to purify, wanting to regret, wanting to have compassion, wanting to purify. And the fourth one, the most important, as Babonka Rinpoche says, it's the resolve, the determination not to do again. So we've taken vows, you reiterate your vows. I will never kill again. I will never lie again. I will never steal again. And this, what this does is not just wishful thinking. You're digging that groove in your mind and you're replacing the other groove of lying and stealing and killing. You're reprogramming your mind. It's so powerful. And vows guide you. They protect you. If every day you say this at the end of every day, you're reprogramming your mind. This is how we change ourselves. It's very practical psychology, and it's very personal. It's you doing the practice, you know. You're using the Buddha. Buddha doesn't purify you. You purify. But you utilize Buddha. It's very powerful. Very delicious psychology. And then as Lama Yeshe says, you go to bed with a happy mind, because there's no tendency in your mind you can't change. There's no thought you can't change. There's no karmic seed you can't pull out. It takes hard work, but that's the job. And as Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. So by living in vows and by, you know, taking refuge, living in vows and doing purification every day, you have a perfect practice, I tell you. And this is just junior school. Not even talking about looking at your mind yet. This is stupendous. This is the groundwork of a very powerful practice, you know. So any questions about that before we just do it quickly together, just to have the imprint? Any questions? While I have a drink of water.
There is one question, but I think it's on a different subject. So shall I still ask it, or shall I still read it?
Okay, so we'll do the purification practice anyway. And if there are any questions, we can still handle them. So tell me this question now, yeah. Go on.
Okay, so I heard such some point of view that actually the Buddhist and Buddhism purpose is not to become a good girl or boy, but to purify your mind, and to become becoming a good person is just a byproduct of this process. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, yes, exactly. So this is where the wisdom wing and the compassion wing come in. The wisdom wing, which we're totally talking about now, we're not discussing compassion here. We're discussing the work we do on ourselves. That's purifying, yes. And so the natural consequence of that, as you purify delusions, as you purify your habit to lie and kill and steal, what do you think you're going to end up with? You're going to be less neurotic. You'll be more kind, more wise, more content, more fulfilled. So yes, you're producing a really nice person, but you can do more than that. You can then go to the compassion wing and enhance your love and compassion even more powerfully and become an amazing, powerful, good person. So you're absolutely right in what you're saying. And that's the wisdom wing, but you can do more and you really can become a super powerful, super amazing person. And that's what a bodhisattva is. So it's both wings of the bird. Okay, let's do the practice. Just think, we'll just do it. I'm just going to repeat some things we've already said, but just do it as a little contemplation to the best of your ability, just to, you know, so visualize. We'll just be very casual about it, very simple, very easygoing. Okay. So we first just think, we just think, you know, we're all ridiculous. We've all done dumb things with our body and dumb things with our speech. We've all harmed each other, lie, stole, killed, done whatever, you know, we've all done that, little simple things. And there's countless we don't remember. Of course we know that. So we just think, I regret, you know, think of some of the things we have done, our habits, shouting at people, getting impatient with our mum, you know, maybe we steal, maybe we lie, maybe we've cheated on a partner, just stuff, normal things we all do. So we just think of those things, just remember the ones, especially as a younger person, maybe. And if we've had a lot of burden, some of us, women especially, feel very burdened by abortions, you know, but don't feel burdened. It's due to the karma of that person as much as anything. I tell you, it's like a dependent arising between the two of us. But we take a responsibility for our part, you know, so we can regret that killing, regret the stealing, regret the lying, regret the bad mouthing, regret the cheating. And why? We say to ourselves, I've done all these things, but why do I regret? Because, you know, and you speak to yourself, because I don't want suffering. I'm sick of suffering. I'm sick of these habits. I'm sick of this misery. And I don't want the suffering now. And I don't want the future suffering. I'm fed up with these old habits. Just speak sincerely to yourself and think of some of your ridiculous habits. Especially the ones we carry with such a burden of guilt from the past, maybe to our parents, and we sort of carry it around with us like a big weight. It's unnecessary. I so regret what out of my own ignorance, I did those foolish things, I regret from the depths of my heart because I am sick of the suffering. I don't want the suffering from this. I don't want this burden anymore. And then all the things we don't remember having done. Of course, we're sentient beings, Countless past lives, Buddha says, if you can imagine that. All the countless things you must have done. That first of all are all the cause of why we suffer at all now. The ones that have ripened. We know we don't want those for the future. So we regret from the depths of our heart anything we've ever done since beginningless time to harm sentient beings with our body and speech. Because we do not want future suffering. We do not. No way. Sick of suffering. And then think of our delusions, which are the source of it. Our ridiculous ego grasping, clinging to this ridiculous concrete me that doesn't exist. And the attachment to get what that fantasy me wants. And the pain and the hurt when it doesn't, which is the aversion, the irritation, the upset, the anger, the despair, the depression, the anxiety, all that drama because of these ridiculous delusions. I'm sick of all this, fed up. Don't want the suffering of this anymore. So whom can I turn to? So we imagine above our crown the Buddha, but in the form of a bodhisattva. He's called Vajrasattva. He's like the main Buddha, but he's related particularly to emptiness because it's the realization of emptiness that cuts the root of all suffering. Right now, doing this practice, we're like putting atomic bombs under all these weeds, preventing them from growing. So we visualize the Buddha above our head, radiant white light, so blissful, so compassionate, wanting only to benefit. And if we have a spiritual teacher, we think it's their mind manifesting as the Buddha in this form solely for my benefit, to benefit me, to help me purify my mind. That's their job, Just take refuge, delight, rely upon the Buddha, the doctor we've chosen. He's holding a dorji and a bell, which is the union of the two truths. In his left hand, a bell, and his right hand, a dorji, and they're crossed at his heart. And he's in the bodhisattva aspect, radiant white light, very beautiful, very blissful, sitting in full lotus position on a multicolored lotus. Very blissful face. He's facing the same way as we are, above our head. So now the second part of reliance, we now rely upon suffering sentient beings, the way they say it. So we think of those we've harmed now, this life, our parents, that abortion, that baby, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the people at work, the ones we've badmouthed, the ones we've hurt, people we've stolen from, people we've harmed, the animals we've killed, the creatures we've killed. This is life. We have compassion. They don't want suffering either, just like me. Such compassion for them. I regret for their sake now. I must purify for their sake now as well. Think of the sentient beings we've harmed, especially some of them we feel bad about. So now, if we can, those who harmed us. Often we have anger and so much hurt, but if we understand we've got karma with these people, and the only reason they've harmed us is because we've harmed them in countless past lives. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. So we have such compassion for them for harming us because they will suffer in the future. Just like we are suffering now from our past actions, they will suffer in the future because of theirs. So that's the basis of really powerful compassion. So have compassion for the people who've harmed you for this reason. If you can. If you can't, leave it there. Don't worry. So now, third step, the remedy. So we imagine now, just from Lama Bodhisattva, he sends, we'll do three little meditations. The first one, we imagine the nectar coming from Lama Bodhisattva's heart, and it arcs around like a hose of energy, and arcs around, and this nectar, white nectar, enters into our crown and fills us completely. Just imagine, filling us completely. And what it does is it purifies, it drives out all the billions of karmic seeds of anything we've ever done since beginningless time to harm sentient beings with our bodies. And it forces out all these karmic imprints as like filthy liquid, disappearing through the lower parts of our body, disappearing into space, not one atom left. This white nectar filling us, purifying completely all the negative karmic actions, the seeds left from the actions we've done with our bodies since beginningless time to harm sentient beings. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo. If you know it, can you put the microphone on for me saying the words, please, Diana, saying the mantra so they can hear it? Diana, you've done it? They're hearing me now. Okay. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. And now back to Russian. Yeah. Okay, I can talk again. Diana, nod. Okay. So now we're so happy, full of this blissful nectar and all the actions. And think of all the karmic seeds we ever planted from negative actions of the body, gone, purified, eliminated, eradicated. How amazing. Full of this blissful nectar. So now again, Lama Vajrasattva very compassionately from his heart, sends this powerful hose of nectar that arcs around, it enters our crown and fills us completely. But this time you visualize it all rises, it forces up to the surface. All the karmic imprints of all the harm we've ever done with our speech. This is ridiculous. We humans mostly. Animals make a few loud sounds, but they don't do much harm with their speech. It's us humans with our clever speech. All the lying, all the speculating, all the bad mouthing, all the harsh speech, all the rabbiting on about nothing speech, all the harm we've done to sentient beings with our speech. Visualizing it all forcefully leaving the top part of our body. Like Lama Yeshe said, it's like, and there's a sink, if you turn on the tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface, doesn't it? All the junk leaves the top part of our body, disappearing into space, not one atom left. All the negative imprints of all the negative speech since beginningless time. Now again, the Sanskrit mantra, the Russian off. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorato Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayata Sawakarma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahung Pe. And now imagine all the negativity created by our ridiculous speech since beginningless time, purified, full of this blissful nectar. How marvelous. So now Lama Vajrasattva, this time he sends like beams of light. Now, I don't know if beams of light can bend, but we pretend they can, okay? Like these laser beams of light coming from his heart, arcing around and entering our crown and instantly filling us, this time instantly filling us with radiant light. And what it does is it instantly eradicates all the ridiculous delusions, which are the source of the problems, all the ego grasping that clings to the inherent me, then the attachment that comes as a result of that to get what the fantasy me wants, all the aversion and the panic and the despair and the depression and the anger and the irritation and annoyance and frustration, all this spectrum of aversion that happens when attachment doesn't get what it wants, and then all the other ridiculous delusions. All of these annihilated. Like it's just as Lama Yeshe says, as soon as you turn on a light in a room, instantly the darkness is dispelled, isn't it? Just like that. Imagine. Delusion's gone. Full of this blissful white light. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Pajita Diro Mebawa Sutoshayo Mebawa Suboshayo Mebawa Anurato Mebawa Sarvasiri Memprayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Sama Manupala Vajrasattva Teno Pajita Dido Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorata Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayasa Sawa Kama Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Musa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Sama Manupala Vajrasattva Teno Pajita Dido Mebawa Sudoshaya Mebawa Suposhayo Mebawa Anorata Mebawa Sarvasidi Memprayasa Sawa Kama Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuruhong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Vajramami Musa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe. All the delusions gone. Think of this, how amazing. Especially the ego grasping, gone. Full of this blissful white light. So now the fourth step, as Pabonka Rinpoche says, is the most important. The determination to change, the resolve. So of course, Lama Zopa says, don't lie to yourself. If you've got a really heavy habit, you don't say, I will never do it again. That's foolish. It's not helpful. But if we can say with confidence every day, if we've taken vows, I will never kill. And that means intentionally. I will never steal. I will not lie. I will not. We can say that. This is marvelous. It's digging this groove deeper and deeper in our mind, programming our mind in these new habits. It's so powerful, So the other habits is so we think that we've taken the vows, and then personally now think of some of your own ridiculous habits that maybe you say, I won't do them for 5 minutes. I won't do them for 24 hours. And then you guys, because it's night, if you always bad-mouthing your boyfriend, maybe you can say, I will not bad-mouth my boyfriend for 24 hours. And you won't, because you'll go to sleep, or at least 10 hours even, because you'll be asleep. So you be realistic with yourself. You speak the truth to yourself. This practice is very much just being our own friend, I just don't think of it as religion. So just a few of your own rubbish habits, your laziness, you can't be bothered, you're putting things off, keeping your altar be moldy and you say you haven't got time. Change those habits. Decide, okay, tomorrow I won't do this and I won't do that. Make some decisions to yourself just for a couple of minutes. Give yourself a timeline. Be sincere with yourself. Okay, so now we imagine the Lama Vajrasattva very happily dissolves into white light. Our Lama, the Buddha, dissolve into white light. And we imagine that the Vajrasattva's body, speech, and mind, my Lama's body, speech, and mind, and my body, speech, and mind become one. They just merge. And then for about a minute, you just imagine you expand to fill the universe, full of the energy of the Buddha, full of the energy of your Lama. Imagine this. No thoughts for about a minute. And now we finish. We delight. We've done this little practice for 15 minutes. That's it. I think we're done. We can go home now. Go to bed, you people. I'll leave the rest of my day in Santa Fe here. We've got all the snow outside today. We had a big snowstorm. Okay, you folks. No more questions there? Maybe we'll have to leave them to another day. Thank you so much, Anastasia. Thank you, everybody. And we just dedicate, we do the little mandala offering again. We do the mandala offering, Anastasia. You put it up on the front and you read the Russian together. And what we're just doing is making an offering to the Buddha and thanking him for the teachings, as if the Buddha gave the teachings, you know. Thank you so much. And we dedicate. And then I'll see you all again, I don't know, another day. So okay, where are they? So say the mandala in Russian, please. Imagine you're offering this universe to the Buddha as a thanks for the teachings. Just the short mandala. Go.
Эту умащенную благовониями и покрытую цветами землю, великую гору мира, 4 континента, солнце и луну, я представляю, как поле Будды подношу, да насладятся все существа жизнью в этой чистой земле. Идам гуру ратна мандалакам нирьятаями.
Got dedication prayer there. Okay, good. Okay. So the first one you see is due to, so I'll sing it in Tibetan and then you say it in Russian. So Gewadi Nudujag Lama Sange Drugyune Droa Chikyang Malupa De Sala Gurpa Shog. And then the bodhicitta, may bodhicitta grow and grow in the hearts of all. Jang Chob Sem Chog Rinpoche Make Panam Keguchi Kepanyampa Mepa Yang Gong Ne Gondu Droa Shog. Say in Russian.
В силу этой добродетели да достигну я быстро состояния гуру Будды и приведу всех без исключения живых существ к этому просветленному состоянию. Пусть драгоценная высшая бодхичитта, та, что не породилась, да породится, а та, что породилась, да не ослабеет, но возрастает все больше и больше.
Okay. So let me see the people again. Take the prayers away. Okay, you people. Happy to see you all. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Diana, as always. Thank you, Anastasia, for everything. And I'll see you all again sometime soon. Anytime, don't hesitate. And if you have my email address, give people my email address if they wanted, Anastasia. Anybody, I'm very happy. Okay? Yes, Anastasia? You heard me? Good. Thank you, people. Much love. Goodbye. And be so happy we did that practice and you can die with a happy mind now. There's more to talk about karma. What can I do? So we have to have another day together. Can't help it. Okay? Much love. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Venerable. Thank you. Огромное спасибо за бесценную помощь, за перевод Диане и нашим 2 Катям. Спасибо вам огромное. Без вас это все не могло бы состояться.